everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight for the Waterfowl Hunter Aquatic Invasive Species Outreach Training. I am Marina Steiner. I am the Conservation Field Assistant for the Upper Sugar River Watershed Association, and I'll be leading you through the training today, talking about what Waterfowl Hunter Outreach is, what aquatic invasive species are, and why we want to do outreach to waterfowl hunters this fall. So looking at the big picture of why this work matters is we want to think about how healthy wetlands and waterways support strong waterfowl populations, but there's always a threat to them, and that includes aquatic invasive species. These can destroy native vegetation and any ecological conditions that birds rely on, and so they can just destroy the natural habitat that we're really hoping that birds will and waterfowl will stay near. So taking steps to prevent the spread of aquatic species can help protect waterfowl habitats and populations, and also protect the hunting tradition for generations to come. And this taking steps to prevent aquatic invasive species and their spread is also important for going fishing in the summer and in the winter. And so it kind of helps with all sorts of recreational activities. So what hunters can and must do when they are hunting this fall is they can do these couple simple steps before launching into and leaving a water body. Well, the first important thing is to first inspect all your equipment, which includes your boat, trailer, motor, boots, blind dogs, and make sure to inspect all your equipment. And then you have to remove all plants, animals, and mud. Make sure to drain all the water from your decoys, boat, your live well, any other hunting equipment. If your boots got soggy or something, make sure to drain the water from everything. And then lastly, to never move plants or live fish or insects, anything away from a water body, just to make sure anything from the water body they're at is make sure to stay there at the landing and not take it somewhere else. So here's a message for waterfowl hunters. This is by Bruce Ross, the Executive Director of Wisconsin Waterfowl Association, and Chris Hammerlaw. He's the Aquatic Invasive Species Coordinator for Golden Sands Resource Conservation and Development. And it's how waterfowl hunters can help prevent the spread of aquatic invasive species. Oh, here we'll go to a different video.
Actually, why don't you go ahead and just stop sharing, and I'll share it on my computer.
Oh, there we go.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Bruce Ross, Executive Director of the Wisconsin Waterfowl Association, and we're here at the historic Nippy Knot Club in Montello, Wisconsin, to talk a little bit about an important message for waterfowlers as they enter the marsh this fall. I'm here with Chris Hammerlaw from Golden Sands. Chris, what can you tell us about what waterfowlers should be doing and thinking about when it comes to the spread of invasive species?
Sure. Thanks, Bruce. Really, it's similar to if you're fishing or boating, making sure that you inspect, remove, and drain all the water from your watercraft. Take all the weeds, aquatic plants off your equipment and boat. But there are a few other things that waterfowl hunters need to take care of, and I'm sure you're well aware of this. We go out duck hunting, and it's a dirty sport. Our waders, our boots get all muddy. Our dogs get muddy. So taking the time that when we're picking up our decoys, even though it might be a cold day and we're running late, taking the time to make sure all the water's drained out of the decoy, making sure there's no plant material or weeds draped on the anchor, no mud on there. There can be seeds and small snails in the mud. Your decoy bags, if you're picking decoys up and you're in the marsh and you're putting them in your decoy bag right away, there can be a lot of stuff on the decoy bag. We understand that waterfowl hunters are going to do the best that they can. You can't get everything off, but all that big noticeable vegetation, mud, needs to come off of there. Other things to think about are the push poles that we're using in shallow, muddy waters, making sure we have all the weeds taken off of there, all the mud cleaned off, drained off, remembering to pull that plug out of our boat, if you're using a boat, or tip your kayak or your canoe over just to get that water out. And finally, things like our dogs, right? They're doing all the dirty work out there for us.
Well, I remember when my dog, Tar, now 12 years old, she may be past her last waterfowling season, but when she was in her prime, she was into, over, and through everything, and she brought half the marsh back with her, including the duck that she was going after. So I can hear what you're saying.
Yeah. A couple of years ago, I got a vest for my dog. Helps keep them afloat, keeps them warm, protects them.
Yeah.
But what I really notice is when they're swimming through the marsh, he's getting a lot of material right down the chest cavity. So taking time to clean those off too is just as important.
Well, Wisconsin Waterfowl is all about habitat restoration and making sure that we're taking care of the marsh. And a lot of our work is restoration work. So if we can keep invasive species from requiring a restoration sometime in the future, that's work well done.
Yeah, and you hit on it. Preventing the spread of invasive species keeps that quality habitat intact.
Yeah, absolutely. So an ounce of prevention in this case.
Exactly.
As you're coming out of the marsh after a waterfowl hunt, you might see some DNR staff and maybe some partners there to help you clean off your watercraft, to inspect, remove, and drain your watercraft before you tow it away. And they might have some tools there for you to help you remember and to help you do the job.
All right, back to you, Marina. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt, for sharing that video. It's a really helpful information for waterfowl hunters themselves, just to get the message from fellow waterfowl hunters on what the best practices are for when you're out this fall going through marshes and wetlands, and just why it's important to take these steps to prevent the spread of aquatic invasive species. So, oops. Put that instead of forward. So what will you be doing with this outreach? So as part of an outreach team, we'll be educating waterfowl hunters of those regulations regarding how to clean their equipment, just like we saw there. And with the Upper Sugar, we'll be mostly on the Mississippi River landings, such as in Prairie du Chien, Cassville, at Black Hawk Recreation Area, or you can go to local landings that, maybe you know of a landing nearby that gets a lot of waterfowl hunter activity, and that'll be a really good spot to get outreach and make a lot of contacts to spread this message. And just let me know where you might be planning to go to, and we can go from there. And then we're really going to focus on pushing this message on the weekend of October 3rd, which is duck opener for our regions in the South, Mississippi, and the North has a different opener weekend. And you can continue doing this outreach all the way to Thanksgiving if you so choose so, but we're really doing a push for the first week in October, that opening weekend. And then also focusing on, hunters usually out Saturdays and Sundays and on business days, and just like thinking of when might have the most activity. So as you saw, hunters use lots of equipment from boats, kayaks, and canoes. They travel all sorts of different ways, and so there's a lot of gear to inspect and clean as laid out in this photo. There's nets, if you have a dog with you, decoys, blinds, and more. So here is a really great video, again, by Chris Hammerla, and it talks about how you can talk to waterfowl hunters, and as he says, talk the talk, and being comfortable talking to hunters about what equipment they should clean and how, and just kind of what language is best to use, and knowing how to talk to waterfowl hunters and be at landings and be familiar with the equipment. So I will stop sharing again. Oh, yeah.
Hello, my name is Chris Hammerla. I'm an aquatic invasive species coordinator with Golden Sands Resource Conservation and Development based out of Stevens Point. This video will help you understand how you can use the Clean Boats, Clean Waters Watercraft Inspector Protocol when you're out contacting waterfowl hunters. It's really not that different than doing basic summer meetings with people at a boat landing when they're out boating or they're fishing. The only difference is that there's some different equipment that waterfowl hunters use. So this video hopes to show you what some of those pieces of equipment are and just give you a little bit better understanding of what the waterfowl hunters are out there doing, which will in turn show you different speaking points that you can use as you contact these people. There are a lot of great users out there of our resources, and this is just another opportunity to help show some people how they can prevent the spread of invasive species in Wisconsin. Now that you've gotten a chance to see what waterfowl hunting is like, we'll give you a closer look at some of the tools and the equipment that waterfowl hunters use. Hopefully you'll get a little better understanding of the speaking points about cleaning equipment to help prevent the spread of invasive species. Dogs are often something that we forget to talk to hunters about when we think about preventing the spread of invasive species. Fur can hold mud and seeds, And the vest the dog is wearing can also have plant vegetation stuck in it or on it. Why does a dog even wear a vest, you might be wondering? Well, it helps keep them afloat, protects them from getting poked by sticks, and also keeps them warm in colder weather. So be sure to speak to hunters about cleaning their dog and the vest it's wearing before they go hunting in another place. Most duck hunters use decoys. Decoys are put in to attract the ducks. That may seem pretty obvious, but once again, when it's time to pick up the decoys and head home for the day, there's a couple of speaking points that you can talk to them about stopping the spread of invasive species. The anchors are most particular. Anchors can collect mud, plant debris, and other material. This should be cleaned off before the hunter leaves the area. Decoys have what's called a keel. These happen to be aqua or water keels, where water can go inside this hole, and it helps keep the duck floating upright when the water is rough. Other keels are closed by the manufacturer, and those aren't as hard to worry about cleaning, but with the aqua keels, making sure that plant material isn't stuck inside the keel is very important. Sometimes decoys get shot or are cracked, and they take on water. So it's very important for duck hunters to remember to drain all the water out of their decoy. This might sound difficult at first, but all that's really needed to do is either pat your decoy so it doesn't take on water, or you can take a small drill bit, drill a hole in the tail, drill another hole in the tip of the bill. That way, if water gets inside of the decoy, you can simply tip the decoy upside down, the water can drain out either end, and the other end will let air in to allow the decoy to drain quicker. Decoy bags are another item that hunters should think about cleaning off. Many hunters might be floating their decoy bags as they're hunting, and those decoy bags can get full of all kinds of plant material, mud, snails, and other items. This is a mechanical decoy. The wings move to help attract ducks to come in. They are typically placed on a pole. Some of them come on a floating unit, but a lot of them come on a pole that gets jammed into the sediment. So another speaking with duck hunters is when you're talking to them, mention to clean off the pole that they're using that gets jammed in. You can see how lots of mud can get accumulated on the pole, and also water can be stuck inside the hollow ends. So these should be drained and thoroughly cleaned before the hunter leaves the area. Waders and footwear are another very important speaking point when talking to waterfowl hunters. The treads of footwear can harbor mud, seeds, and small aquatic animals. This is where our boot brush that we're giving away really becomes an important part. It's one thing to speak to people about how they can prevent the spread of invasive species, but it really helps them out when we give them a tool that'll make their job easier. Not only can the tread of the footwear have invasive species, but also think about the waders themselves. Neoprene waders stick really well to seeds and mud. So these items should all be cleaned before going to your next hunting spot. With waterfowl hunting, things to consider is it's just a plain dirty sport. Pretty much everything's going to be wet and muddy. So taking the time to clean out your canoe or kayak or other boat is really important. One final thing to talk to waterfowl hunters about when speaking about preventing the spread of invasive species is whether or not they used any vegetation for camouflage on their watercraft or their equipment. Remember that all aquatic plant material needs to be removed prior to leaving the landing. Here are a few examples of items that we like to hand out to waterfowl hunters to remind them to prevent the spread of invasive species by cleaning their equipment. The item on the top is a red bird band, which has the Stop Aquatic Hitchhiker logo on it, and reminds people to inspect, remove, and drain the water from all their equipment. Below is a boot brush with a nylon brush and a steel brush, as well as a pick attached to a lanyard. These items again not only remind the hunter to prevent the spread of invasive species, but also gives them a tool to do that work. I hope you find this video helpful. Thank you for your time.
All right. So that's just an excellent video from Chris again, talking about really the points and areas we want to hammer home when talking to waterfowl hunters on what pieces of equipment they should look at, and the answer is all of them, but also why we look at those pieces of equipment. You know, with the decoys, water can be in them. You know, with dogs, mud gets all over them, as with everything. I think it's a really helpful video to get the idea. So when you're out at a landing, here is a document of prompts to help you with inspection. So if you are interested, I can definitely email you a copy of this document. It's just a one-pager, but if they have questions about why to, you know, inspect and remove plants and animals, it is a follow-up prompt about why this is important. So, you know, mud on anchors can be a prime hiding place for aquatic invasive species, or you can see on steps 3 and 4 of the idea is to drain boating equipment, drain your decoys, and why this is important. So you can see on the right, there are aquatic invasive species that are invisible to naked eye. So we really want to make sure any water is left there at the landing. And then there's a couple of blurbs on the bottom about different gear, which we'll go over in a minute. So again, here are some Watercraft checkpoints. Look everywhere from the Watercraft itself to its propeller. And so they often have an extension, so make sure you look on there. This includes making sure the live wells are drained, but that doesn't really apply because we're not fishing. But in the summer, make sure you drain your live wells. Check on the axles, the rollers, also look on the hitch, and even on the vehicles if the vehicles are backed in quite a bit in the water. Make sure just to get any plants or animals off of there that you may see. Waterfowl hunters might be in kayaks or canoes, so make sure to remove plants from those, as we saw in the video. Tip over your kayaks and canoes to drain any water of them. And so a side note is that per the DNR NR 40, the aquatic invasive species law, duckweed or watermeal, it's like a small plant that sits on the surface of the water. It kind of looks like algae. They're not required to be fully removed because it can be near impossible as it sticks to everything, so it'll become a relief, but just try to get as much as possible off of there, as there can still be like mud snails connected to the duckweed. Blinds, they're very likely to hide aquatic invasive species. Some hunters use natural or artificial blinds. A note with the natural blinds, that if they're made from plants, you can only use dead stems. There cannot be any seed roots or seed heads or root material, and everything must be dead. So no live plants that can possibly transfer its seed from, you know, one water body to another as hunters are moving locations. Making sure you can use Phragmites, can be used in restricted counties, but in all Southwest Wisconsin, it's prohibited. So you cannot use Phragmites. It's kind of reed or common weed. You can, if you have any questions, just let me know on that. But the main part is to make sure you use all dead plant material. No seeds or roots can be used in the blinds. As Kristen noticed in the video, the decoys will often hold water, and this is where microscopic aquatic invasive species can hide. So a tip is to drill in the bill and the tail of the decoys so it can help drain the water out of them so you're not carrying them. Plus, it makes them lighter to carry, which is also helpful. Make sure to check the back of the keel and or any anchors that might be on the decoy, just to try to get as much mud and water off of them as possible. Dogs the hunter should check under the dog's collar and vest for any seeds, snails, or mud. The New Zealand mud snails can be quite small, microscopic, but still visible to the naked eye. So just make sure to check for those. They can get caught as well. Making you have maybe a jug of water to help clean your dog, a brush to brush them off after you're in the water. Just do your best you can to get any of the mud off of them, because as you know, dogs can probably get pretty muddy, and they enjoy being out there, but they can bring a lot home too. So it helps you clean up at home as well. Any other hunting tools to target are waders and boots, decoys, the push poles, and nets. We're asking for the best effort, which might not be completely possible in a wetland, but just let hunters know, clean them off, but you can also let your stuff dry for 5 days before going to another water body. You can use a small concentrated bleach solution, or power wash your items if it's not too cold yet in the year. But we're really just asking for hunters to try their very best to try get these, making sure aquatic invasive species don't spread, but we know we can't expect perfection. So when you're out at a launch, what you can do is talk to the waterfowl hunters, go up to them when they're launching or maybe leaving the landing, and say, hey, I am with, can say your organization name, and I am doing outreach for aquatic invasive species here at this landing and talking to waterfowl hunters. And so here's a sheet that has all the information where we fill out and keep track of how many hunters we talk to in a day. And so at the top is, your information, who you are, date and start time, where you're at a landing. And then the first column on the left is talk about our boats entering or leaving, and keeping track. If you're talking to, if you're in the afternoon, there's probably more boats leaving, or if you're there a certain time in the morning, they could be coming or going. And you can ask waterfowl hunters if they've been contacted this season by an inspector, and maybe they were contacted by me earlier this summer at some of the landings. I was doing clean boats, clean waters around. So ask them if they've been contacted by an inspector, and then you can ask them if they're willing to answer a couple questions. And sometimes they might not want to talk to you or anything, but oftentimes I found that people are really receptive to messages at landings. And only ask them if your boat's been anywhere in the past 5 days on a different water body, where that might be. You can put that in the center whitish column, as you can see there. And basically on the side is then those prompts and the prevention steps to discuss with the boater, which includes inspect your boat trailers and equipment, drain all water, remove any mud, just make sure anything that should clean your materials as best as possible. So this kind of sheet helps as a data sheet and prompt all in one to talk to waterfowl hunters, and be your guide for collecting this data and sending the message. Because like you said, you can go up to them and say, hi, my name is this. I want to spread the information about aquatic invasive species with my organization, and just making sure you're aware that you have to inspect all your equipment, remove any plants, animals, mud, clean your dogs, etc. And it just is really helpful for the hunters to know why we're spreading this message. So if you will be out at landings this fall, you can send me an email at the bottom for copies of this form, and I can email them to you. And then once you're done with the forms at the landings, you can send me a copy with a completed form with all the data, and I can put that information in. Lastly, for safety, because of COVID-19, please wear a mask when engaging with people at landings, maintaining a distance of 6 feet from people as well. And then this year we won't be passing out any prompts or handouts to people at landings. That is, I know Chris said that in video, but we're not doing that this year. And so I thank you for your participation in making sure to keep this a safe project. Any questions at the end? Matt, anything else to chime in for at the moment?
That sounds good. Thanks for helping us through that process for what we're doing out there. And we will talk to you in person, and just give Marina an email to get that process going if you are available to help us out on the waterways. And we'll see you in the next training. Thanks again.
Absolutely. Yep. Thank you for that, Matt. And so just shoot me an email. Again, it's down there at the bottom. If you have any further questions, or if you want to have some of the data sheets, I can send you emails of those. And I look forward to seeing you out on the water and enjoying the Wisconsin waters. And thank you for your participation and keeping Wisconsin waters safe.